Yeah, we are live now. I was going to kind of bluff it and not say anything for the moment. That's right. We'll edit this out of the podcast bit. This is behind the scenes footage here at the Sports Therapy Association podcast. Right. Hey people, how you doing? Welcome. Those of you who are already listening live, there's a little bit of behind the scenes banter there between myself and Gary Benson. I was trying to bluff it. I was trying to stick my Ethernet cable in, realizing I hadn't done it yet, thinking I'll just keep a bit quiet. And then big Gary comes along. No, I can't see you. Anyway, welcome, Sports Therapy Association podcast. It's 8 o'clock and we are here as always. You can join us live on the Sports Therapy Association Facebook page. Or if you prefer, you can join us live on the Sports Therapy Association YouTube stream, whichever you prefer. And also, if you're into LinkedIn, then as of next week, we'll be on LinkedIn. And I'm pretty sure we're going out live to a couple of other Facebook groups and pages as well tonight. So plenty of chance to join us live. But of course, if you prefer, then you can join 90% of the people who prefer to watch it in their own time on Catch Up as a podcast. In which case, if you do, then do me the great favor, if you would, of leaving a review, particularly on Apple Podcasts. It's so important, Apple Podcasts, and just getting our news out. So before we start, I've got to say, give a huge thank you to last week's guests. A record number of guests in one episode. There's actually 9, plus a lot of people leaving comments and contributing from inside the Facebook page. It was an episode devoted to safety at work, and we were focusing in this particular episode last week to female sports therapists and massage therapists at work, and problems and experiences which they're faced during, after, with some things going on for years. It was a massive episode. I can't do it justice by talking about it now. But I do thank the 9 or 10 therapists who chose to come up live and share a lot of very personal details. And it was a great discussion. I tried to keep it as much as possible. And I think that was probably made it the best episode ever with not me rattling on. If you haven't seen it yet, then do have a listen. We are going to follow it up because obviously safety at work is, there's issues for everybody regardless of gender. And I tried to make that clear from the beginning. I don't think anybody's felt kind of marginalized by focusing on female therapists, but we will be doing a follow-up episode after Therapy Expo, which will be talking about safety regardless of gender. So we'll have a chance for talking about anybody who's been affected and looking at solutions and prevention. So yeah, thank you again to the people from last week. Right then, that's said and done. Also, just a little plug for the STA coffee chats. A lot of people have sent emails saying that was really interesting, that episode. I want to talk more. How do I mix with members and non-members? And we've already got that in place. It's been happening since July. They're called Sports Therapy Association, or STA coffee chats. And this month, for example, in November, they're happening every Thursday at 7:45 p.m. apart from obviously on the Therapy Expo day. There won't be a coffee chat there, and indeed there won't be a live podcast on the Wednesday the night before, because we're all gearing up for Therapy Expo, which is a nice segue to what we are talking about tonight. Let me just close down a couple of messages here. I've got messages that we might have lost a Facebook feed for some reason. I'll check if that's the case. We'll see how it goes. Catherine's just joined us on Facebook. Are we okay in Facebook, Catherine? I think so. Anyway, right, I'll continue until someone tells me otherwise. So tonight, yeah, we have got the pleasure of being joined by Mr. Liam Richardson, recently appointed, well, back in January, Head of Content for Healthcare for CloserStill Media. If you were confused by who CloserStill Media is, well, they're award-winning organisers of events, not just in healthcare, but they've got about 80 or so running nationally, internationally, and we can talk a little bit about that with Liam. It's not just Therapy Expo. They are the people behind the London Vet Show, the Pharmacy Show, Learning Technologies, the Dentistry Show, and an awful lot more. So that is who CloserStill Media is. But we're interested tonight in Therapy Expo, which, as hopefully a lot of you know, is happening on Wednesday 24th and Thursday 25th at the NEC in Birmingham. So we're going to have a chat tonight about that. Obviously, it's the first one since COVID-19 meant that 2020 couldn't happen. So we're talking about what precautions are in place. We've had a lot of emails about that. Is it safe to go? What precautions are there? So we'll be tapping into Liam's knowledge and experience about what is happening there. As always, if you want to ask a question, then feel free. When you do leave something on Facebook, then I can bring you up onto the main stream and your wonderful logo would appear with your question. And the same thing is from YouTube as well. If you're watching on YouTube, you can comment and ask the guests questions as well. I'm still worried that maybe we're not getting through to Facebook, but we'll see what happens. Right, so without further ado, I'm going to bring up not just Liam, but also Gary Benson, founder of the STA, and we'll get into tonight's show. Hey, Liam.
Hello, good evening.
How you doing?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thanks for and you're busy. I hear you've been so busy last week. It was just work, wasn't it?
Well, I had a week off in the Lake District, which was quite nice. Just the calm before the storm. We've got a couple of weeks to go. We had an event today as well, actually. So it has been quite full on. Yeah,
so I hope you had a good time. I'm sure you deserve that. So, great. Yeah, thanks for giving us the time. It's perfect. We really are going to the source of the content. We couldn't be talking to anybody more in charge of the content because that's what you do for Therapy Expo. So I'm looking forward to asking you questions about that tonight. Gary, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. I can confirm it is live on Facebook. I'm watching on another screen. I can see it on Facebook, but on our Be Live, I can't see Liam. So all I've got is a blank wall.
You're one of the lucky ones then, Gary.
Right, okay. We'll see. I mean, comments are coming in slowly. Sharon, Louise, Becky, welcome. I can see things coming up, so we'll just keep going with it. Anyway, so Liam, 2021 Therapy Expo. I want to hear about the, I'm imagining kind of a lot of sweaty palms around tables discussing, can we do it? Are we going to be able to do it? Watching the news coming in. Has it been a rough ride to actually put this in place?
I think for anyone working in the events industry, it's been a difficult couple of years. And I actually started, as you said, at CloserStill in January. So at that point in time, things were really, really dicey, and I didn't know what I was coming into in some respects. But I think all we've been able to do is work with all the information that government have provided, which, let's face it, at times hasn't been anywhere near as helpful as it could be. But I think over the last, probably since maybe this, getting into the spring, summer, it's looked more likely. So I think the hard thing for me was, back in January, February, starting to prepare things and act as if it was going to happen, despite the fact it might not. But I think once it got to May, June time, it looked more likely. We've worked really closely with our venues, so the NEC in this case, and we make it as safe as we possibly can do. So I think probably at no stage were we thinking that it wouldn't happen once we got to sort of the spring, June time. But it's definitely been a tough year. I think there's other, as you said, there's other events that we do, back in September that were a lot dicey because they're the first ones we've done. And the good thing, once we do Therapy Expo, we'll have had probably about a dozen events that we'll have run since the beginning of September. And the NEC has been back in action since, I think, August, and it's been having events every week. And I was at London Excel today for an event for hospital doctors. There was about 2,500 of them, and there's all good precautions in place. So I know that some people might be worried about safety still at going to large venues and that, but I'm sure we can go into some of the things we've got in place if you like.
Yeah, I mean, shoot away with that, I think, as well. We get quite a few emails from people. I think that I get the impression within the STA anyway, there's still a fair percentage of them and ahhing, thinking, I don't know, maybe because we're involved with, working with patients and clients, and we're still really wearing protective equipment and clothing. So what sort of precautions have you got in place?
So for anybody attending the NEC, you do need to download the COVID app from the NHS. You can also get a paper certificate, I think, from your GP as well. And basically, once you go to the NEC, you need to have uploaded, you either need to be double vaccinated or to have uploaded a lateral flow that needs to have been registered. And they do check it on the door. So I had, from the events that we've had, one of my colleagues had their second jab, and I think you've got to leave it the full 14 days, and it was 12 days, and they were turned away and were quite, disappointed. But from our perspective, it means that it's working, and they were actually checking and taking it seriously. So there's that from a safety perspective. We are mask friendly. We do encourage mask wearing. We're working with the NEC, and obviously that means that they set the policy, so they don't mandate it, but we encourage it. And as I said, we were at an event today for hospital doctors, and I would say that when people were in theatres, in the closed theatres, I'd say that 90 to 95% of people were wearing masks as well. Maybe not so much once they were in the exhibition area, but certainly when they were in lecture theatres, they were. And people seem really, have seemed really happy with that.
There's a question here coming in from Daniel. Nice timing, Daniel. Daniel's asked, I'll just bring it up if you're watching the podcast. Hey, Daniel, how are you doing? Daniel asks, will the Scottish Vaccination App /pass be accepted?
It will be, yeah. So that has been instructed to people at the NEC and all our venues. And even when we've had people from overseas as well, we've had people from France come to some of our events, and we've been able to make sure that their passes are recognised as well.
Gary, you're pretty big, aren't you? You've helped a nation of therapists for about, 18 months now with regards to keeping safe. What are you looking for anything particular, or do you advise anything for members who are travelling up? Or
well, I just echo what Liam was saying. We will encourage members to wear masks when they're in the enclosed space. I mean, for those people who haven't been to the NEC before, the halls are enormous and the ventilation is quite good. Usually the halls are quite cold. But we will be having hand sanitizer on our stand. I won't be shaking hands with people like I normally do. We'll have a fist pump or whatever, but I'll be sanitizing regularly. I'll be wearing a mask. The staff all working on the stand will be wearing masks as well. We're just doing our bit to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, I echo that. I think it's a good, especially if we're talking about healthcare, preventative, isn't it? But we won't judge people, obviously, who are running around unless they're kind of sneezing in our faces or yeah, it's going to be interesting for so many reasons, the expo. Let's go back a little bit to people. Everyone in the room probably, and thank you everyone joining us live, probably knows about Therapy Expo, but I always think about 1,000 or so or 2,000 who download it who might not have been before. I appreciate you started in January. CloserStill Media, but it's been, what number are we on now? It started in 2013, didn't it?
That's right, yeah. I was just saying that probably all the people listening, and you guys know more about Therapy Expo than I do because you've all actually been to it. It'll be the first one I've been to this November, so I'm excited for that reason. So yeah, but yeah, it's been running since 2013, and obviously first one in 2 years. So we've made a big push behind the scenes to make it hopefully as memorable as possible.
I went back and looked at, because it's quite nice if you type in Therapy Expo 2013 or 2014, then the adverts still come up and the speakers and everything, and it's fun to see, and it is quite incredible looking at the change in numbers. Like Gary said in the beginning, it was in Manchester Central, and then it moved up to the NEC in 2015. And the numbers was huge. What do you think? Because at the time in 2013, I appreciate you weren't involved in the first one, but it was kind of billed as the first of its kind, wasn't it? For like allowing therapists to all come together with all different disciplines. Is that still kind of the ethos of kind of breaking down disciplines and barriers? Yeah,
I think that's a good question. So I think when I've spoken to people, so when I started in January, I'm not, I'll hold my hands up, I'm not a therapist by background at all. I've been working in events in terms of content for about 11, 12 years. But, my first port of call was to talk to people who've been involved with the event, over many, many years and get a sense from them about what they thought was valuable, where they thought we could improve, their recommendations. So people like Gary, for example, people like Dan Lawrence from Rock Tape as well, who's been involved a lot in the past, have all given me really good pointers and steers. But yeah, I think the overarching ethos from 2013 is the same now, that it really does, bring together that whole therapy community. I think that's what makes it unique, and that from the feedback that I've looked at over all the years, that's why people seem to value it and want to keep coming back.
It's interesting when I look back. I'm going to put a little photo up here now. I'm not sure if people see it, so I might if I put something on fully, and then we can still hear and everything. But this was the speaker list from 2015 when I was a speaker there, so I had the happiness of meeting a lot of people. But for those who are just getting into kind of social media and kind of coming across some of the louder people on social media, it all happened in 2015. Gary was there as well, but in that list of therapists I've just put on the screen, that's not all of them. That year in 2015 you had Adam Meekins, you had Mike Stewart, you had Seth O'Neill, you had Ian Griffiths, you had a whole host of people who at that time were kind of they'd had a couple of years playing around with Twitter. It really was quite a revolutionary year. And the information that was getting put out there, so Ian Griffiths was talking about his overpronation. Adam Meakins was going into very much what he talks about. And I think he had probably his presentation was called "You Can't Go On Going Strong." I'm pretty sure that's what it was 6 years ago. But and there was a whole host of names there. So anybody who's not quite sure about Therapy Expo, a lot of the people you're probably following today and either into or not into were there in 2015. It was a very big year. And then in 2016, you really focused on some of the excellent speakers you had there. I mean, even here, there was one show you do not want to miss, where there's a good-looking guy who didn't have kids at that time, so he looked a lot healthier. But yeah, have a look back, if you like, to the people in 2015. It really, I'd forgotten exactly how many people were actually there who went on to fuel this kind of breaking down of barriers and getting disciplines talking to each other. The whole Physio Matters team were there, Jack Chew and all his lot, testing out their new T-shirts. You were there, weren't you, Gary? It was quite a big buzz, wasn't it, that year? It was a lot of people.
Yeah, it was really good, and we had our conference, if anybody remembers, in a room outside of the main theatre, off to the side, past all of the food vendors. But yeah, all those people you mentioned, we've had people like Andy Caldwell, Dan Lawrence, John Gibbons, Mike Stewart, all speak at our conference. Rachel France, Mike Grice. So yeah, it's been great, and if you go back to the Manchester 2 years, it was quite a small event in comparison, and then when it moved to CloserStill and it went to the NEC and it joined forces with the occupational therapy show, and yeah, you were getting a lot more people. The thing I'm interested in this year, and I spoke to Liam about this early doors this year when we were initially talking about going, is how many people are going to turn up, how many people have been missing that human contact for too long, and my fear was that, with, you mentioned Jack Chew and Physio Matters podcast, and they've been doing some great stuff with the Therapy Live series. People have got used to doing CPD from their front room, but they haven't been able to go and buy a massage gun and a foam roller. So hopefully people will turn up in high numbers.
That's for you, Liam. What do you think? What numbers looking like at the moment? Do you think the whole year of online stuff with some very massive, like Jack and his boys had about kind of 15,000 people logging on? Do you think that's going to affect and change the dynamic of actually people paying money to go to a place, or do you think people are ready and happy to go somewhere, meet up?
It's a really good question, and my view on it is that I think what's happened in the last 18 months is I think there are people, in a way, COVID has been good for people that don't like really going to live events, because I think for a long time they've been not catered for, and there are a lot of people that maybe are a bit more introvert, maybe they're they just don't have the time, they've got other commitments, and they've never really had the options of doing stuff that was online, and they didn't really want to be going to events. So I think there's a whole host of people who now have events that are for them, which is great. I think for other people, I think there's going to be a bit of a balance, isn't there? So I think, say you used to go to maybe 10 events previously that were live, it might now only be 3 or 4 and the rest would be virtual. I think it's going to be a mix. I think it depends on the event, and it depends how valuable it is. I think what I've, being in my sort of world, obviously the last, year has been great doing things on Zoom and Teams, but I've been doing, hosting things that are in this platform, and sometimes it's quite hard when you're a speaker or a chair of something to see how well it's going, or are people engaging with it in the same way. And I've also been on training courses for a week at a time, 9 till 5, and it's really it's really tricky concentrating online for that long when you've got all the other distractions, whereas when you're at an event you can you might go in the different mindset. So I think overall, now that we've come to the other side of this and we're in, we've experienced Zoom and Teams and everything else, I think a lot of people are ready for some face-to-face learning and interaction. I was just, like I said, I was at an event today called AGM, which was for, people, hospital doctors, and pretty much every speaker was saying, oh, isn't it great to be talking to human beings again? I think someone said, oh, it's great to have people in 3 dimensions again. And there was a real buzz, and I've been reassured over the last couple of months that that we're not going to suddenly stop doing this, and live events aren't going to happen. I think people are crying out for them. I just think that people have more choice now than they had before, and choice can only be a good thing.
I like it. Gary, you excited getting some face-to-face action in?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, historically, we use it as a chance to engage with our membership, but also to engage with potential new members. If I'm honest, we haven't had competition there previously because Ollie from Basrat, he's there and we speak most years, but some of the other associations haven't been to these events, so it'll be interesting, and people can compare us to what the others are doing and saying. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward. We gained a lot of members during COVID, and our membership's growing daily, so it's always good to put a face to a name, and I agree, whilst we can Zoom chat and Teams and whatever, to see people in 3D is really what I'm looking forward to, although it will be at a distance.
Yeah, elbows only.
And we're going to need name tags. I'm worried because I'm not very good at recognizing people. Maybe someone a bit taller, but everyone's going to be wearing. Does everyone have a lanyard with the name on it anyway? A lanyard,
yeah, with a badge, yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, because I'm the older I get, the more absent I get, and so if I walk past you and don't say anything to you, then it's not because I'm ignoring you or snubbing it. It's just really because unless I see you in a little square like on social media photo, there's going to be a lot of that, isn't it? Walking past each other. So,
I think it would be a lot better if we could wear the name badges on our heads like that. Because you're looking down at somebody's waist where they think, oh, hi. So that's a bit some awkward moments, but yeah, it is good. It's good to meet people.
There's lots of people that have mentioned that they've, there's certain people they've been speaking to over the whole of COVID, and they've never ever met before. And at a few different events we've had, people are saying it'll be the very first time they've been able to see certain people, which is pretty good as well.
I think it could get quite emotional. I remember the first, not going too off track, it's kind of the first Run Chat Live conference I did. I brought speakers from around the world together, who, like Simon Bartold, who's a fantastic podiatrist, who's been doing it since the 80s in Australia. For the first time, he was meeting someone like JF Ascoulia, who's in Canada, who's an incredible therapist, works with the running clinic. And they met up in Brighton, of all places, and they've talked and conversed, and even in some cases done papers together, but never actually shook each other's hand in like 10, 13 years. So it was just amazing. And I'm hoping that a Therapy Expo, I'm hoping it becomes there might even be a tear or two being shed, because it's going to be people who've really forged some tight bonds, in some cases some really tight bonds with the pressure of COVID. There's been people thinking they're going to lose their jobs. There's been plenty of different circumstantial changes, including marriages, partners. There's been deaths. It's been very emotional. So I think it's going to be quite emotional there, and it's kind of nice that it's happening in Therapy Expo, because it's a nice big hall where people can go off and disappear for a while if they're getting overwhelmed. Yeah. Gary, have you got any more questions? Have you got something? I've got more, but I'm conscious that I'm just asking.
Just for those people who are listening in, then Liam, who haven't already booked a ticket, and STA members we can exclude because we've got our own purchasing arrangements with you. But let's just say that my local college got in touch and said, I want to bring 10 students. Do they get a preferential rate? What are the costs involved for those people who might be listening to the podcast, over the next week to attend the event?
No, that's a very good question. So if you go to the website, and there is a number to call, and there are people working right throughout the next couple of weeks that'll be able to deal with larger bookings. All the rates are on the site currently, if people were booking single tickets online, for example. But if you're looking at, say, larger group booking, definitely give the team a call, and they'll be able to work something out when you're looking at that sort of volume.
I don't know whether you probably haven't got the answer to this, because obviously you haven't got the stats everywhere, but I'd be curious to see whether the percentage when people sign up, I think I'm going back to 2015, but I think one of the things on the sign up form was what your profession is, which discipline you come from. So I'm wondering whether, as we have now seen kind of professions coming together a little bit more, and one of the big things we kind of try and champion is by getting a little bit more evidence-based with massage, we suddenly were on the same page. As soon as you start mentioning biopsychosocial, you can actually then have a conversation with a a physio who's biopsychosocial kind of informed as well, or an osteo. All the disciplines are kind of coming together. So I'm interested to find out whether the percentages have changed, because previously it would have been predominantly soft tissue massage therapists and all about buying massage guns, and now things are going to change a bit. I think it's going to be interesting this year. It's going to be a different kind of person walking around, talking and looking. You don't know, do you, the percentages of different?
I don't off the top of my head. I think I could probably dig out some of the stats to see, but I'd have to do a bit of number crunching and things like that. But yeah, I think from the conversations we've had internally, it's a pretty good mix still from previously, and we are on course at the moment to be bigger than 2019 in terms of volume of attendees as well. So there's that indicates that the appetite is there for people to attend.
How do you? Okay, so you're content. You're head of content. How do you select content? What do you base your choice on?
That's a really good question. So when I started working in events about 12 years ago. I wanted to originally be a journalist, and then realised that there probably wasn't much money to be made in being a journalist, to be honest. I ended up getting involved in events, and I started off working in oil and gas events of all things. So this is about 12 years ago, and from there got out of that and then started working with the NHS on lots of different events. So it was a brand new world for me. And the trick with the content really is just to talk to as many people as possible, do as much research as possible, and try and ask the right questions and find out what it is people are interested in, and get to the bottom of their main challenges, their main issues, who they want to hear from, why they want to hear from them, and then just put it together from there. So I think sometimes it's quite good to come into something fresh like I have this year, because I think sometimes with some of the more NHS oriented events I work on, for like GPs and things, I've been doing it for a long time. So sometimes I go in with my own preconceptions, as it were, of, this is what they want. But actually, you need to really keep going back to the research, keep talking to people every year, never thinking that you know best. Luckily for this one, I genuinely don't know best. I'm learning it all for the first time new. But just talking to as many of the right people as possible, and hopefully getting the right program together. And that's what it comes down to. So it's just good old-fashioned research and asking questions, really. And I think the great thing about working on Therapy Expo, I know it sounds probably a bit cheesy, but people, I've been sort of blown away with just how friendly people are. I might drop them an email and say, I wouldn't mind having a chat with you. Gary was the same, wouldn't mind having a chat with you. And people get back to me, the same day, and then I'm on the phone with them for maybe an hour at a time, and they're just giving me loads of pointers and tips. So there's so many people that have been, so helpful and given up so much of their time to just sort of educate someone who hasn't a clue, really, so that they know a bit more than they did in January, which is, which I really appreciate. So yeah, there's a really good group of people, some wise heads that have been around a while that are hopefully guiding us in the right direction.
There's a couple of things coming up in the chat, Matt, which we can discuss. But one question that's come in to me several times this week: people who booked their ticket in 2019 for 2020, and I know I've spoken to you about this before, Liam, and we've spoken to Helen. People are still worried that their ticket from last year will not be valid. What have you done as a team, to communicate with these people? Have they all had the emails now? Should they be looking in the junk folders if they haven't had it? What can they do?
Yeah, everyone should have had emails sent to them. Double check which email that you might have registered with, because I know sometimes people might have a couple of different ones. Definitely do things like checking your junk folders just in case. And if you do have any issues whatsoever, do go to the website and ring up. There's a number on the website. Just ring up the team, and they'll be able to look at our records and double check. But I think as with most businesses in all worlds, it was a little bit rocky, I think, to be fair, at the beginning, in terms of moving things around and working out. Because obviously we've had 2 years of disruption. But I think we've now hopefully got to the bottom of it. And, if people have had to do a bit of chasing, I can only apologise. But we are hopefully sorted now. But anybody that isn't, do call the number on the website. And if you have any problems, I'll, happy to share my details afterwards and Twitter and everything else. So I can look into it for them as well.
I think that asks your question, Louise, doesn't it? Louise Aker says, I booked my ticket a while ago. Will we be emailed the timetable in advance? So yeah, if you haven't heard anything, Louise.
Yeah, you should be getting. We should be bothering you with more emails than you care to like, to be honest. So do definitely check junk just in case. All your other email addresses. But if you've got any issues, Louise, we can catch up, and hopefully I'll be able to get to the bottom of it if need be.
There's a question from Becky here as well, going back to entrance. Will we need photo ID to confirm that the QR code is actually ours?
I don't think you will need photo ID. I think as long as you've got you have the app open and then they scan it, I don't think they check photo ID. Obviously, if you've got it with you, it's helpful, but I think all they do is scan the QR code on the app that you have. So yeah.
Fantastic.
So just a question on that then, Liam. Obviously, I'm going to be there on the Tuesday to build up the stand. We usually go in through the trade entrance, if you like. Will there be security there? Will they be scanning us when we go in?
Yeah, I believe So all people that are exhibiting, contractors, stand builders, all people like that, they'll be vetted in the same way. So there'll be the same procedures in place, just obviously on a slightly smaller scale than the following days. Yeah.
Fantastic. People who are in the comments section, obviously keep those questions coming in. In the meantime, I'll have a look at my little crib, the particular things I wanted to ask you.
I wonder, people who are watching and listening, I wonder what they're going for. Put in the comments what you're looking forward to seeing. Who are you looking forward to seeing? Who are you looking forward to listening to? And given the fact that this web chat podcast started as a result of COVID, so that we could keep in touch with our members, give us some feedback. Come and visit us at our stand, which is adjacent to the Therapy Update Theatre, and give us some ideas about content that you want. Because Matt and I and the rest of us, we had a team meeting last night, and we're looking at forward plans for 2022. So, how can we engage more with you? What do you want us to do? What do you want us to focus on? And I will be interested, given the changing narrative of our industry, it will be interesting to have a look at the caliber of product suppliers that are there. At any event, you do get a snake oil salesman, but it will be interesting to look at what the new fads are for next year, and whether there's any evidence to support them.
I was having there was a little chat, I can't remember if it was on one of the podcast sessions, but I'm not saying you need to get extra security in this year, Liam, but I think what is going to happen in therapy, it'll be interesting for kind of the people Gary's mentioned, because I think the average therapist, maybe this is wishful thinking, but I think the therapist who's going to turn up and walk through the doors this year, probably thanks to COVID, there's been a rather large educational part of COVID, because people have been talking with each other more, which generally leads to education. It's a really good, who would have thought. And I think as more therapists are becoming a little bit more evidence-based, some of the ideas which 3 years ago, 4 years ago, therapists were just sitting with and quite happy, like we can use this tool to break down scar tissue, or this will help improve circulation, all these kind of, typically with soft tissue massage, if anyone is on there still saying these things to try and sell their goods, which I probably think there will be, because the evidence-based practice is still a bit of a drop in the ocean. I think they're going to find, I think of a few STA members who I just hope they don't go and open their mouths to them, because they're not the most tactile people, but I think there's going to be some interesting conversations at the stands this year, because therapists have got a bit more confidence to go, what you're telling me here, it just doesn't happen. And a lot of them haven't got that way of actually conversing without being a bit confrontational, which is a shame. But do you think, have you noted, I mean, you've only been there, is there a conscious recognition that, as Gary mentioned, the interpretation of what we do as massage therapists has changed, definitely since 2013? Is that something that CloserStill Media are aware of?
That's really interesting, actually. So I think some of the earliest conversations that I had were around things like that. So people, I think people like Mike James and people like that, who I think probably been on here on the podcast before, and others, Ian and Gina Range as well. Yeah. They, a lot of the things that we've been talking about in conversations were about things like evidence-based practice, and I think probably from my research, just how you know, I guess in a way it was an eye opener for me just how evidence-based and, you know, quite scientific everything was. And I think from the conversations I've had, people are saying that that's really accelerated a lot in the last couple of years, particularly. And I think I see that across the rest of the NHS. Obviously, like I said, I work with a lot of other parts of healthcare, and I think there seems to be a lot more increasing respect for the work that therapists do. Actually, you know, there seems to be a lot, particularly in things like general practice, even a much more of a recognition at the big contribution that people make. And I don't think that respect was there before. I think it's not where it could be, but I think it's definitely going in the right direction. I think some of it's coming from some of these people themselves as well that I'm talking to. They the stuff they're doing, it's really, you know, high quality work. So yeah,
I think it's reflected.
So it'll be interesting because, you know, I'm not disrespecting the therapists of old, but, you know, what I'm saying is that therapists now are more intelligent. They're better informed, and my fear is that, you know, since I've agreed to go, I've been inundated. With people contacting me saying, "Do you need staff to man your stand?" Now, you could get a photogenic male or female to go and work on your stand and sell some products, but if they're challenged on the efficacy of the passive intervention, you know, it's not going to stack up. And I think that hopefully the people behind the products, behind the services, will be there, so that we can have those intelligent conversations and we can challenge where we feel necessary.
I'd agree with that.
It's going to be interesting. I'm very excited. Let me just check the comments here.
So
a few people now speaking up. Go on.
While you're checking that then, Matt, one thing I think is going to be really good is, you know, because of COVID, because of Teams, because of Zoom, you know, we've engaged with a lot of people, a lot of trainers as well. And it'll be really interesting now to go and meet those people if they're there, and to have a face-to-face conversation with them, because, you know, as Liam inferred earlier, that sometimes when you're delivering stuff online, you know, it's rehearsed, you know, it's you know, it's timetabled, it's scheduled, and you don't get that interaction that you would get if you were, let's say you'd gone on a course for the weekend with Dr. Chris Norris, you know, and he might be teaching his 3 hours back rehabilitation model. Now, if he's delivering it in an online lecture, you're not going to get some of the anecdotal things that he would normally interject with. So I think it'd be really good for those people. You know, we had Chris Tiley on speaking about, you know, lifting weights in later in life. It'd be great to meet Chris and to see how he's developed since he was on, you know, 6, 7, 8 months ago, to see if he's gaining any momentum. So that's what I'm looking forward to. It's engaging with people who I've spent a lot of time talking to virtually.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? You know, sometimes it's the ad libs from speakers that they might not normally do. It's the questions that get asked at the end of the session. Sometimes it's just having that 5 minutes, if you can run up at the end to have a chat with the speaker just after they've finished. You know, it's the interactions with, you know, some of your colleagues in between sessions over a coffee or whatever, or hopefully a pint in the evening maybe, and things like that. So I think it's all of that factored in is quite, you know, is quite important. It's just a different way of learning, isn't it? I think I didn't realize it before, but I could safely say I think I learn better face to face than I do online. I found it a lot harder. At first, I loved it. I thought, this is great. I'm not having to, you know, leave my room. I'm just here. But actually, I don't think you learn for me anyway. I think it's different. People learn in different ways. I think we've just got to make sure that we cater for all different types of people. But for me personally, I think it's pretty good to be back learning face to face.
Yeah, what we've done historically is with our keynote speakers for our conference is we've always asked them to stay around for an hour after, either before or after or both, you know, to engage with the members, so that because it's quite a tight schedule. You know, in the theatres, that you know, you get your 20 minutes, you get a 5-minute Q&A, with any you know, empty the theatre so that the next person can set up. So what we do, being quite close to the Therapy Update 32. So if anybody's got any questions that we haven't covered, please come along to the stand where Mike or James or whoever will be staying around for an hour to answer some of those questions and engage with you and tell you what they've got planned and coming up in the future.
It's probably at that point I want to make sure that if people are downloading this podcast and interested in it, that they have a little. I'm just going to run through this very quickly just to let people know about what we have got in the STA theatre. It's all in the afternoons, us guys. We have got 4 speakers on the Wednesday in the afternoon and 4 on Thursday in the afternoon. So Wednesday the 24th, it starts off with myself as a little bit of an introduction to the other 3 speakers following me. But I'm going to look back at the kind of 77 episodes of STA podcast which we will have had by then, and look at some common themes, and probably talk along the line of one of the biggest questions we receive at the STA is probably what's the best CPD to do, what CPD should I be doing? And people are very sometimes too quickly ready to think that they need to spend some money to improve themselves. And one of the things we'll be talking about is how, especially for newer therapists, you don't need to spend money. Money is not a measure of how good something is, and there's a whole load of free stuff out there which you can watch in your own time. 77 hours of the guests we've put in here, for example. So that'll be my presentation, and then I'll be followed by the Massage Collective, who is lovely to see. They're very involved with Therapy Expo. I mean, that's a sign of a movement there. In previous years it would have been some demonstration of a calf massage. Now we've got 3 great therapists, Matt Scarsbrook, Becky DeMott and Anna Maria, probably talking about what's happening underneath your hands. Let's talk about a little bit about interaction with the client, which is a massive shift in how our industry is working. So they're going to be with us in the STA Theatre at 12:50 on the Wednesday. We've got Dr. David Rhodes is also another main speaker. He's going to be coming and talking about his statement on Twitter, which I loved, which said, "Sports therapists, stop pretending to be physios," which was very controversial. It was wonderful clickbait, which I felt quite proud to use. But yeah, talking about the danger of imposter syndrome and trying to be something and thinking physios are a totally different profession. It's totally different. So he'll be talking to us as well. Mike Grice, Director of Movement Therapy Clinics, is going to be talking about safety net, how we can all be part of a multidisciplinary team. On the Thursday, we've got Gary was mentioning Chris Norris of Norris Health. Is going to be talking specifically about hamstrings, mechanics, injury and rehab. No, I lie. Hold on, that's in the main theatre. No, in us for STA, beg my pardon, we're going to have Claire Minshall at 1:15, who'll be talking about strength and conditioning. She's going to do to ask me anything. Claire's great. She is literally just saying 40 minutes or half an hour should be there. Guys, ask me anything. I'm not even going to feed you any questions. So that's going to be a really nice opportunity to have one of the main speakers actually sit down in the theatre and really kind of answer close-up questions. Then it'll be Tim Allardyce talking about hamstring rehabilitation. Then we'll have Deborah Thurlow-Rowley talking about endometriosis, which is also a fascinating subject and taps into very much the importance of female health and pelvic health. And then on the Thursday, we'll finish off with Chris Tiley, who'll be talking about encouraging our aging population to get strong. You don't have to, obviously. I recommend it, but there are loads of other speakers going on throughout the day, and that's the joy of Therapy Expo. It really is tailored to what you feel you're going to benefit from. There's so much choice, amazing choice. And in the mornings as well, there's some great stuff going on, like the Massage Collective. I mentioned Chris Norris. I mentioned as well, who else is there who stands out for me? Loads of speakers. I'm not going to say any more because I don't want to spoil you, but there's plenty to choose from. Is that kind of one of your goals, Liam? Are you aware that there's more than everybody can see? I mean, it'd be impossible. You've just got to pick and choose. You're always going to miss something, aren't you?
Yeah, there's, our aim is to have as much choice as possible, because obviously that's just better, full stop. And I think it's, for me this year, looking at the feedback, there are certain speakers that people love hearing from every year and would be disappointed if they weren't there. But we had some feedback, I think, that we wanted to hear from some different speakers as well that maybe we haven't had in the past. So it's just been trying to get that balance. So people like, Chris Norris is returning and doing a couple of really good sessions for us. The Massage Collective you mentioned are doing a couple of sessions as well, but we've got some new people involved as well. People like David Rhodes and Mike Hine, who work at football clubs at Salford City and Lincoln City as well, doing sessions. Got people from like the London School of Contemporary Dance doing a session. So there's an interesting mix of people. So we're trying to get new people involved as well, but still have some of the old favourites who we know from all the feedback, people flock to every year, and a lot of those people, like people like Claire, Emma, Holly, God, there's too many to mention, really. Dave Gibbons, people like that. They've all been, there's loads of people that have, helped a lot in terms of just saying, have you tried talking to this person? Have you thought about this? What about this as an idea? And, so I'm just really indebted to all of those, really.
Yeah,
what we'll be doing for the STA conference is afterwards, for those people who might be watching or listening to this session, we will be making the audio available, and any PowerPoint slides will go into the members portal. But Jake's been working on this, and we spoke about this last night, Matt. Jake's been working on getting a sponsor for each of our sessions. So we've got eight sponsors are sponsoring a talk, and there will be a little bit of a social media thing appear on the screen, and you take a photograph of yourself in front of it, and you tag the relevant people, and you'll get a chance to win a prize that's been donated by one of our very kind sponsors. So we hope to generate a lot of social media interest as we normally do throughout the 2 days. We'll have somebody doing social media all of the time. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It looks very interesting again.
That'd be great. We've got I want to make sure people here are getting some questions in. There's a question here from Stephen, if that's all right with you, Liam.
All right, okay, yeah.
And remember, this is live, people. Liam hasn't heard these questions before, so that's one of the this is like, this is as close as we can get face to face. So Stephen Waterson says, is there a plan, let me put it up on the screen, is there a plan to have this expo north of the border or other home nations? Costs and logistics make it difficult for me to get there.
That is a very, very good question. I don't think anything's, completely, off the table. It's something. So every year, my boss is always thinking about new ideas, whether it be, an event in different locations, whether it be in the north, the south, and covering that way. If there's definitely the appetite for something like that, it's something we'd certainly consider. I'm happy to, if that is something that enough people want, we'd certainly look into it.
Fantastic.
Just on a smaller scale, we had planned in 2020 to do some regional STA things in Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, but obviously with COVID they had to be shelved. And we will look at getting that for later on in 2022, whether we organise something in Edinburgh. We can get some facilities and do something, a mix of virtual speakers and some face-to-face guests. So I'll be looking to the regional representatives in those areas to assist me with that, but it won't happen in the first half of 2022 simply because of the forward plans we've already got.
I think if it's an excuse to go to Edinburgh, then it's definitely should be something to consider, isn't it? Because it's probably the best city in the UK, if you ask me. So there you go.
There you go. We'll turn that into a soundbite for you there. You can have it on your phone. Catherine Reimer and Becky just reiterating, and I'm with you on this. Apart from the amazing speakers and everything there, Catherine Reimer says, I'm looking forward to seeing you all face to face instead of Zoom. Great to see you all. Smiley face. And Becky as well has said, for me, my main driving force for going this year is to meet more of the STA team. And even Louise has come in there. Such lovely people in the STA here, especially joined us live. Meeting you guys the first time face to face, and also learning more, getting some more knowledge to practice with, some networking. So yeah, it's going to be a great meetup. What was I going to ask? Let me have a little look at my crib sheet. I'm sure there's something else. What about goals for the future? I mean, I know you said you're going to have to sit back and see how today works, or rather the Therapy Expo works. You're going to be very busy looking around, and that will give you more ideas of where to take it. But do you know, as an expo, which has now been in the game for like quite a few years now, and kind of leading it as well, is there any kind of end goal or something you want to achieve?
I think that is a great question. I suppose the boring answer is that my goal is Therapy Expo. I can see from looking back over the years what a great reputation it has, and how people have really spoken to me over the last sort of 8-9 months, say about how important it is to them and how key part of the calendar it is. And I think it's really to continue that tradition as much as possible, and and obviously enhance it. We want to make it better every single year. And I think for me in November, I want to go to the event for the first time and make it as good as possible. But I want to just see it for myself. I want to talk to as many people. So I think if there's anybody who's tuning in now who wants to come and have a chat with me at the event, that'd be great. Happy to sit down and have a chat, because I just want to absorb as much knowledge, as much feedback as possible, just so we can make this the best possible show it can be. And I think from my experience, no matter what type of event it is, the key is getting all the key people that are involved in it, or the people that are most passionate about it, getting their feedback, their thoughts, to make it as good as it possibly can be. But for me, the goal is for Therapy Expo to go strength to strength, and we've had that 2 years away. And that's been a challenging time for everyone, for the events industry, for therapists up and down the country, for all sorts of businesses. And our goal is to rebuild and have a really good year this year, get everyone back together, get everybody face to face, get everybody networking and meeting each other again. Everybody hopefully finding all the content, the speakers, as valuable as possible, and setting a really good bar to build on and improve on in future years. And that's my goal.
Fantastic. I wonder how many people, Gary, have actually been there every single year like yourself. You should have some medal or something. You have been to every single one of them.
I don't know. Do we get a long service and good conduct medal?
I know.
You might have to,
yeah. I'd love to have a photo.
Hi, Brian. Brian's joined us. I don't know whether he's been working, but Brian's late. Interesting point from Sandy Keane there, Matt. Can you put that one up?
Yes, certainly.
Please.
Sandy says, many conferences over the years are always in the south or far north, i.e. Edinburgh. I'm always surprised that a conference in the Midlands, Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, would attract so many who cannot get to London or Scotland.
Well, I think the good thing...
Where would Sandy like a conference? I mean, to me, this is obviously Liam's speciality, but for me, what I look at is the logistics. And if you're putting on a conference, you've got to have you've got to have hotel accommodation, you've got to have good road and transport links, you've got to have the size of the venue. All of those things are taken into consideration. And whilst you can, I'll just pick out Norwich as an example, you can host a conference in Norwich, it would be limited by the infrastructure, in my opinion. Is that right, Liam?
Yeah, I think that it's the infrastructure, but also where the sector's at. So I think I said at the beginning, when I first started working events, I was working in oil and gas, and you won't be surprised to learn that any event in the UK we did for oil and gas was in Aberdeen, and if it was anywhere else, it'd be in Houston, in Texas. And the challenge for anything healthcare related is obviously, it's like hospitals. They're all over the country. So what can you do? And I think over the years, we've had a lot of feedback from people, in my previous jobs as well, saying, everything's in London. Why is it in London? But sometimes, you do get people that might be in sort of the East Midlands where it might work out easier for them to get to London than it is to get to Birmingham sometimes, depending on how they're traveling. So, for me, I'm originally from Cumbria, and sometimes getting to Birmingham and Manchester is easy enough, but anywhere else, sometimes it's just as quick to get to London as it is to Liverpool. So I think sometimes that's why things end up being London centric, which I think frustrates some people, but in all likelihood, it probably is best. It has the most facilities, and overall, it has the most transport links, unfortunately. And I say that as a proud northerner, but unfortunately, it is usually the easiest bet. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm based in Lincoln, and we've got lots of accessible roads that go north and south. But if I want to go to Manchester, I have to go north before I can go southwest to get there. If I want to go to Birmingham, I have to go southwest before I can go west to get there. So there's nothing that goes sort of cross country. And so that's one of the limitations for me. Whenever people say Lincoln, I say Lincoln. I've never heard of it. Well, there are places 50 miles further to the east than Lincoln that are really inaccessible. But Nottingham's close to me. It's easy to get to. Like you say, Manchester and Birmingham, they're the ones. But for me to get to Liverpool is a nightmare. I have to go so far north and then go southwest again past Manchester. So it takes hours and hours.
Yeah, it's a shame as well, because Liverpool's a great city and it's got great conference facilities. But for some people, it does end up being that little bit trickier, unfortunately. I mean, I love doing events there, but just sometimes it's just not always as practical. But for this event, obviously we're at the NEC in Birmingham, and that it's it seems to work pretty well actually from experience. And I think most people seem to find it easy enough to get to, and they've got the resort world there now as well. There's loads of hotel facilities and stuff to do as well in the evening. So it is, it's a good city, and it's come on leaps and bounds over the last sort of 10, 20 years overall.
Fantastic. Thanks for your question, Sandy. Appreciate that. Right, it's getting to 8:56 now. I've got a chance for a couple more questions if you want. We're talking to Liam Richardson, who's the head of content at CloserStill Media, who look after Therapy Expo, plus a lot more. If you have got any other questions, I'll put them in now. Gary, anything else you can think we should talk about for the conference, or anything else on your mind?
No, as I said, I'm looking forward to meeting the STA members. We've got quite a few of our regional representatives have stood tall, and they're going to come and do some ambassador work for us. So that'll be nice to meet up with them instead of over Zoom. I'm not sure how many members are going to go. In previous years, we've sort of kept a tally of people who purchased a ticket by doing a poll, but because a lot of people have got tickets that are from they bought in 2019 for 2020, it feels a little bit disjointed. And I always say that Therapy Expo comes around too quickly for me. And I know it's at the same time every year, but obviously with you coming on board, Matt, and organising all of the conference speakers for me, and Jake doing all the marketing and things, I've been able to concentrate on the stuff that I do best, and that's talking to members on a daily basis. So, to put faces to names, and to have a conversation face to face instead of over a phone or Zoom is definitely going to be the highlight for me.
Yeah, definitely. I do encourage members, if possible, to come along. I mean, one of the things we wanted to stress tonight, I think Liam's done a grand job, is COVID-19 has been considered. Obviously, it depends on the individual as to whether you're living with people who are high risk, whether yourself are high risk. Obviously, it's an individual decision. But if you've got any doubts, and hopefully, we are going to be mask friendly, you're not going to feel out of place putting a mask on. Like Gary's just said, he's not going to be shaking hands with people. So we are conscious of things like this. Ultimately, it's up to you to look after yourself. But I think it sounds like the organisers have put this into action as well. So I'm going to feel pretty safe up there. So there we go. Right. There is going to be a social. Do you know, is it official social, Gary, that's been organised? Have you seen that?
Well, yeah. I mean, Danny has put something on the groups, hasn't he? That there's going to be a social outside of the Therapy Expo. But what normally happens is that, on conclusion of the first day's activities, there's usually a social in the centre of the hall, where everybody stays around and has a glass of wine or a bottle of beer or an orange juice or something like that, and does a bit of networking. And then we're going to, I assume we're going to move on to somewhere else. Previous years we've been to one of the hotels that are locally, but I think this year it's outside of the venue. But then I myself, we looked at the hotels, and the hotel costs were prohibitive this year. So we've got an Airbnb, which is several miles away. So I'll have one drink, and then I'll be the designated driver to drive you all back. But more than happy to meet up. But there is a link in our group to where the social's happening.
Thank you, Alistair. I think we'll sign out with that. Alistair Cunningham says, very much looking forward to meeting all you lovely creatures. Is that creepy? Is that good? No, I think it's pretty good. That's good. Right, gang. Liam, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's going to be really interesting to see. I love your honesty that, this is your first year. We're going to have to look around and take a lot of consideration. It'll be really interesting hearing from you maybe after the event as to what you picked up, what you saw, what were surprises, and what you thought was going to happen. It'll be really cool. Because I really do think, just to reiterate, I think it's come at such a great time, both for the business and everything. It's going to be a really interesting dynamic this year. I haven't been since 2016 when I spoke, mainly because I was asked by the organizer of content, can we have something with a bit less pain in it? It's all very pain. We just want injuries. Because it was a little bit ahead then. I was going, you can't talk about injury without pain. It was like, mate, we just want you to talk about running injuries, not pain. And I was sitting on my horse back then and thinking, no, you don't understand me. And I was like, no, I can't talk this year. But now everyone understands more about pain and the whole biopsychosocial model. But yeah, it'll be fascinating. Maybe catch up afterwards and see what you gathered through it.
Definitely.
I'm also really looking forward to as well. It just crossed my mind when you were talking. Is I'm really excited that people are going to have to talk to each other face to face again. There is a danger. Social media has become the new norm, and some of the etiquette we've used, which we would use face to face when we're discussing things, has kind of disappeared. Imagine if we all kind of used the same emoticons in real life when we're having a discussion, where you just kind of burst out laughing and you kind of stick your tongue out and wink an eye and kind of make these faces and slap your head every time. Imagine if you have a conversation with someone and you just slapped your head. I think it's going to be useful to people to have a little crash course in how to debate with people who aren't on the same page as you without using an emoticon. I think that'd be quite interesting as well. It'd be healthy for people to walk away. So, right. Thank you, Liam, once again.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back next Tuesday at 8 o'clock on either Facebook or YouTube, maybe LinkedIn as well. I'm not sure who we're talking to next week, but then the week after we won't be, because we will be packing our toothbrushes and making ourselves look pretty ready for Therapy Expo on the Wednesday and the Thursday. So see you next week, Thursday at 8 o'clock if you want to join us. Gary, anything you want to sign out with?
No, I'm more than happy. Thanks, Liam. Are you going to stick in the room, Liam? We'll just have a quick chat afterwards. That's
yeah, of course. Yeah, definitely.
We'll say goodbye to everyone out there, and yeah, us three will stick behind and have a little off-camera chat. Right, thanks people for attending again. And if you are watching the podcast or listening to it, if you've got any feedback, as always, just write to matt@thesta.co.uk. We bring you who you want to hear, who you think will help you. So make sure you do keep that feedback and those requests coming in. If they're out there, we can find them, we can get them on the show. That's what we do. Right, take care, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.